به نام خدا سلام خانم ها و آقایان.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well. Wherever you are, I hope you are healthy, peaceful, and doing fine. I'd like you to think carefully about this question. Pay close attention to what I'm about to say. Have you ever experienced your brain simply refusing to stop talking, even when everything around you is completely quiet? It's as if someone is constantly speaking inside your mind. If you could find a mute button for your mind, how much do you think the quality of your life would change? Most people believe these inner voices aren't normal. But the truth is that almost every human being has an inner dialogue. The important question, and one that sometimes becomes very disturbing, is this: how can we manage those inner conversations? Why is it that some people simply cannot quiet their minds? Is there a scientific way to make that happen? If this topic matters to you, be sure to watch this video all the way through. I'm going to explain it in a very simple and concise way. I personally think it's a fascinating subject, and I'm confident it will be useful in your daily life. My dear friends, before we continue, I need to clear up a very common misunderstanding. When we talk about the voices inside our heads, we mean our inner dialogue, our self-talk. For example, when we're thinking, planning, or replaying a memory, we can hear those thoughts in our minds. This is completely different from hearing actual voices that have no external source, which may be associated with certain psychiatric disorders. This distinction is extremely important. The subject I'm discussing in this video concerns normal inner dialogue, not auditory hallucinations. If someone is experiencing auditory hallucinations, they should consult a psychiatrist and receive appropriate medical treatment. Now the question is, how are these inner conversations created? There are several reasons. The most fundamental reason is that the brain you and I possess is constantly processing information. It's like a computer that never shuts down. As long as we're alive and breathing, it continues processing information. It only stops when we're no longer alive. This is simply the nature of the human brain. What exactly is it processing? It analyzes events. It processes the decisions you're making or planning to make. It predicts the future. It learns new information. It solves problems. It reviews memories. All of these processes take place through our inner dialogue, the very voices we're talking about. In fact, this inner voice is one of the brain's primary tools for thinking. So this is not a defect. It is not a disease. It is not a disorder. Please pay close attention to this point. However, there is an important however. Sometimes these inner conversations become distressing. At that point, they are no longer functioning normally. Why does that happen? There are several reasons. One of the most common is what psychologists call rumination. This means your mind repeats the same thought over and over again. That is no longer healthy. I wish I hadn't said that. Why did I say that? I hate myself. I wish I'd broken my leg instead. I wish this hadn't happened. All of this endless if only thinking eventually becomes emotionally painful. Another reason is worrying about the future. Your mind constantly creates negative scenarios. What if I fail? What if I'm not accepted? What if my application is rejected? What if I don't get the job? These endless what-if questions create anxiety and turn our inner dialogue into something exhausting. A third reason is when our inner dialogue becomes a source of stress and anxiety. When we're anxious, our brain constantly remains on high alert. It's like a soldier who is always waiting for the enemy to attack. Eventually, that soldier becomes exhausted and less resilient. Our brain works in exactly the same way. So, when our inner dialogue continually produces stress and anxiety, it moves beyond what is natural. Another common cause is perfectionism. Perfectionists tend to criticize themselves far more than other people do. A fifth reason can be loneliness or having too much idle time. When our minds don't receive enough external stimulation, they naturally begin talking to themselves. That's perfectly understandable. The brain is always working. Scientific studies have also identified other contributing factors, such as sleep deprivation. Lack of sleep increases intrusive thoughts, can make disturbing thoughts more frequent, and reduces what's known as cognitive control. So, now that we understand the causes, let's discuss how to calm the mind. Fortunately, there are several techniques. They're neither complicated nor difficult. You simply have to practice them. The first technique is labeling your thoughts. What does that mean? Instead of immediately accepting every thought as reality, tell yourself, my mind is worrying right now. Create a little distance between yourself and the thought. Psychologists call this cognitive distancing. Doing this reduces the emotional intensity and the power that distressing thoughts have over you. This is a very effective technique. The second technique is writing your thoughts down. Many of you have heard about this before, but you've probably never actually tried it. Try it just once and you'll quickly notice the difference. Whatever your mind keeps repeating, whatever is bothering you, take a piece of paper and write it down. When you write your thoughts down, your brain feels that the information has been stored somewhere safe. The brain is intelligent. Once it realizes the information has been recorded on paper, it no longer feels the need to keep repeating it over and over inside your mind. As a result, you gradually begin to feel calmer. The third technique is breathing. I've talked about this technique before. Breathe in for 4 seconds, then breathe out for 6 seconds. Repeat this for several minutes, not hours later, right at that very moment. It's truly remarkable. When you practice slow, deep inhaling and prolonged exhaling, you activate your body's natural relaxation system through your brain. And you'll notice it yourself. You begin to calm down. The fourth technique is focusing on the present moment. Instead of fighting your thoughts, direct your attention to what you are experiencing right now. For example, as I'm speaking to you at this very moment, you may be listening to me and watching me, but your mind might actually be occupied with your child, a personal problem, or comparing what I'm saying with something else happening in your life. This means your mind keeps pulling you away from the present moment and dragging you toward unrelated thoughts. That is harmful. It becomes mentally exhausting. It shouldn't happen. It simply means that you're not truly living in the present. Rather than battling your thoughts, focus on your immediate experience. What can you do? When you notice this happening, intentionally direct your attention to a sound in your surroundings. Listen to the birds singing. Listen to the wind moving through the trees and rustling the leaves. Notice the feeling of your feet touching the ground as you walk, or simply listen to the sound of your own breathing. Doing this shifts your mind away from the distressing thought and redirects it toward your breathing and your surroundings. You are intentionally moving your attention away from what is troubling you. The fifth technique is what I call the 5 senses rule. Look around you. Name 5 things you can see. Touch 4 things around you. Listen carefully for 3 different sounds. Identify 2 different smells. Notice 1 taste. This is known as the 5 senses technique. It engages your sense of sight, touch, hearing, smell, and taste. Once all 5 senses become involved, Your mind naturally steps out of that repetitive cycle of distressing thoughts. The sixth technique is physical activity. Going for a walk is incredibly helpful. Exercise is beneficial. Even just a few minutes of simple physical movement can make a significant difference. These activities greatly reduce the intensity of rumination. The seventh technique is to schedule a specific time for worrying. Some people worry constantly and say, "I just can't stop worrying." Fine. Tell yourself, "Not now. I'll finish my work first. Then, at 7 o'clock this evening, I'll sit down and worry." Keep postponing your worries to a later time. In reality, you're gently tricking your brain, and this is actually a healthy strategy. In cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, this approach is known as a behavioral technique. It is one of the practical methods used in CBT to help people manage excessive worry. Of course, let me say this once again. I am not a therapist. Many people write to me asking for treatment. My dear friends, I am not a clinician. My work is research. I study, I investigate, and I share what I learn with you. Whenever you need actual treatment, please consult a qualified mental health professional, not just anyone who claims to be an expert. I've probably said this 1,000 times already, but I want to repeat it once more. The next technique is to speak to yourself as you would speak to a good friend. Instead of saying, "I failed again," and remaining trapped in that failure, say, "I made a mistake, but I can learn from it." Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend. The ninth technique is managing what you allow into your mind. For example, if you spend your entire day consuming negative news, endlessly scrolling through social media, or exposing yourself to stressful content, your inner dialogue will naturally become more negative. So, what should you do? Don't allow those unhealthy inputs to dominate your mind. That's all. The 10th technique is getting enough sleep. Adequate quality sleep regulates your emotions, reduces intrusive thoughts, and improves your overall mental well-being. Some people proudly say, "I've only slept 6 hours over the last 48 hours," as if that's an achievement. It isn't. That's not something to be proud of. If you're unable to sleep properly, that's a problem, not a badge of honor. Getting enough sleep is essential for both your physical and mental health. Meditation, mindfulness, and mental focus exercises can also be extremely helpful. However, sometimes you may reach a point where you've tried all of these techniques, yet your condition still hasn't improved. Your daily life has become disrupted. Your mind is flooded with intrusive thoughts, and you simply can't find relief. My dear friends, if your inner dialogue has become so intense that you can't sleep properly, can't work effectively, your daily functioning has been impaired, you can't concentrate, and you're hearing persistent voices that seem incredibly real, despite having no external source, and these experiences are causing you significant distress, then this is no longer something that can be solved through self-help techniques or by watching videos. At that point, you should consult a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist. This requires a different level of professional care. I hope the video I've shared with you has been helpful. Thank you for giving me your valuable time. I sincerely appreciate all of your support and kindness. I especially want to thank those dear friends who continue to stand by us during these difficult times, helping support the significant costs involved in producing educational content like this. I am deeply grateful to them on behalf of everyone who works with me. Stay healthy. We sincerely hope these videos will benefit you, improve your well-being, make your life better, and help transform the hardships and turbulence of today's challenging world into opportunities for greater peace and tranquility. I truly care about all of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your kindness, your prayers, your generosity, and your continued support. With my sincere respect, Amir Mehrdad Khosravi.